In 1992, Ilhan Omar came to this country from a refugee camp in East Africa, Kenya. 3 years later, she and her family applied for and received refugee status in the United States. 5 years after that, she became a U.S. citizen, and she's been attacking the United States as a racist hellhole pretty much ever since. According to Omar, there's barely a difference between this country and terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda. In a 2013 interview, Omar complained that people seemed to think there was a big difference between America and Al-Qaeda. Watch.
When I was in college, I took a terrorism class. Every time the professor said Al-Qaeda, he sort of like his shoulders went up, and
yeah, he's in command here.
Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah. You don't say America with an intensity. You don't say England with an intensity. You don't say the army with an intensity.
So she still feels this way. We know because she recently spoke to a group hosted by the Council on American Islamic Relations, CAIR. And while there, the congresswoman complained that America is bigoted against Muslims. They're second-class citizens, she said. She offered no proof of that. It's an absurd claim. Muslims live with far greater freedom in America than they do in any Islamic country on the planet. That's why they move here. Millions and millions more would like to join them. And you would too, if you were them. That's why Congresswoman Omar lives here, too, and not in Somalia. In America, by the way, she's an elected member of Congress. Could she do that in Saudi Arabia? No. Is she grateful for that? No. She never stops complaining. And as part of that complaining, she made this now famous remark about 9/11.
CAIR was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties.
Some people did something, but we're the real victims here. Omar's understatement attracted plenty of criticism. The New York Post ran a cover showing images of the 9/11 attacks, in case you'd forgotten what some people did. Then late last week, the president joined the criticism by tweeting this video.
CAIR was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something.
So you have no idea right now?
Oh, there's another one. Another plane just hit.
Some people did something.
Oh, my goodness. There is smoke pouring out of the Pentagon.
Some people did something.
Little over the top? Yeah, maybe. If you're Ilhan Omar, you probably wouldn't like that video. People don't like to be criticized. Got it. But would you feel physically threatened by that tweet? Well, not unless you believe that disagreement is the same as violence. And as it happens, the left does believe that disagreement is the same as violence, or claims to believe that. All of a sudden, everyone on television is telling us that Trump is trying to hurt Ilhan Omar.
Many are calling Trump's tweet and that video an incitement to violence against the Congresswoman.
Donald Trump is trying to incite violence.
This is not just incitement to violence.
This is an incitement to violence.
The goal is inciting violence.
We are getting to the level where this is an incitement of violence.
No question is he inciting violence towards Muslims, not even only Ilhan Omar, but Muslim Americans in this country.
So Cory Booker, who will say literally anything, went farther, of course. That's a signature move. Whenever everyone else is saying something ridiculous, Booker will triple down on the insanity and pretend to be completely sincere about it. In this case, Booker was happy to blame Trump for actual terror attacks.
Since 9/11, we've had terrorist attacks in this country. The majority of them have been right-wing extremists, and the majority of those have been white supremacist attacks, from a synagogue in Pittsburgh to a church in South Carolina. And these are white supremacist groups that use language, as we saw it as far away as New Zealand, use our president's language almost as if as a license for these attacks.
I swear, in 20 years, every fifth grader will believe 9/11 was committed by white supremacists. Totally true. You watch, you heard it here first. They're the real threat. We need to fear and suppress them. And that's what Booker's saying. And to prove it, he and so many demagogues on the left are forever telling us about the epidemic of hate crimes in this country, but they're lying. There is no epidemic of hate crimes. We check, we know what the numbers are. We checked for California, the biggest state, the most liberal state. Here are the numbers. In 2017, the state of California convicted a total of 65 people of hate crimes statewide. 65 out of a population of almost 40 million people. By the way, there were fewer hate crimes in California in 2017 under Trump than there were in 1996 under the Bill Clinton administration. That epidemic is fake. It's propaganda. They're trying to control you with fear. Your opinions are violence. That's what they're saying. Your opinions are violence. Disagreeing with me is assault. For my safety, you must not be allowed to speak. You must obey. That's what they're telling you, and you can see why. Here's where we come into it. If we go along with this, if we accede to these demands, it's over. If we let them redefine speech as violence, the First Amendment has no meaning. They can tell you what to say and when to say it. They can use any force necessary to make you be quiet, just as you would do whatever you needed to do and use whatever force was necessary to stop a terror attack. Because they're saying your opinions and a terror attack are the same thing. This is a scary argument, and we should be afraid of it. Dave Rubin hosts the Rubin Report on YouTube, and he joins us tonight. Dave, thanks so much for coming on. I thought of you immediately when I saw what they're doing. Are people thinking through the implications of you're criticizing the person, you're committing an act of violence by doing it?
Well, of course, we have to be able to separate criticism of ideas from criticism of people specifically. You have to be able to criticize any set of ideas. So yes. A set of ideas, whether it's a political platform, say the Republican platform or the Democratic platform, or a religious set of ideas, whether that's Islam or Judaism or Christianity. By the way, I mean, this is what religious scholars have done for years. They rip apart the texts and they argue over the meaning of the text. So you have to be able to criticize ideas. But, you know, the main thing I was thinking while you were talking there was that we live in a strange time where the same people who will call you a white supremacist, who will call Donald Trump a Nazi, who will call 47% of the country deplorables or racists or the rest of all of those buzzwords that you're always talking about, is that an incitement to violence? I mean, if you use their own logic against them, if they're really fighting against Nazis and Hitler and the rest of it, which is, of course, patently absurd, then aren't they the ones that are actually inciting violence? And in fact,
they are. And let me just say, I've had violence in my house because of them. And yes, and they've had a big effect on my life and my family. But I'm not going to whine about it, because I think debating the ideas is the most important thing. They use any disagreement at all is a way to shut down the debate. I guess that's the difference.
Look, if you look back at the last couple of years of the way this thing has tracked, and I did tons of videos about this over the last 4 years. First, it was calling all your political opponents a Nazi. Then it was you can punch a Nazi. Now it's we can silence people over incitement, meaning that if you call someone a Nazi, now we can silence them. I mean, what's coming next? Could we jail these people? I mean, you're absolutely right that the First Amendment, this is all we have left in this fight. You know, I've been traveling the world over the last year, and I talked to people about free speech and all of these issues, and everyone in Europe is jealous that we still have the First Amendment. They wish they had the First Amendment. So this is what we must stand for. And I have to say, as someone that lived in New York during 9/11, I was in my early 20s, watching the videos of the planes crashing, every time I see it, it's horrific, obviously. But the dismissiveness that Omar, the way she laughs at it or smiles when she's talking about it, or just sort of shifts the way that you should feel about it. It's not about what happened to the people who actually died. It's about what happened to her. It's disgusting, really. I mean, it really is.
Isn't it also, it's a kind of narcissism that is also universal on the left now. It's all about me and my feelings. Like, I don't know, all these people died. Like, their kids are orphans. No, but really, people looked at me funny on the subway. Because maybe it's not about you, okay, for a second.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, well, this is where Ben Shapiro's facts don't care about your feelings. The left has just absorbed that if you feel anything about anything on any given moment, then that's what's right. So on the segment you just did prior to this, the idea that Cher now is taking positions that really are the same positions as Donald Trump, it's because the chessboard has been flipped. You really can get, I mean, that's the thing. You can get them to take any position on almost anything. But this, again, this is where, man, as someone that came from the left, and I can't truly say I'm part of the left anymore, this is what I was trying to stop. We have to be able to talk about these ideas. And by the way, don't go into politics if you don't want to be criticized. And the way that they send out the memo that, you know, so they all say incitement the exact same time, all the politicians, the MSNBC
and journalists playing along with this, in our business, you know, toughen up.
Well,
stop
all the people
whining.
I mean, look, it's like, wait a minute, you guys calling everybody Hitler, everybody Nazis. This guy right across. I wouldn't be sitting here if you were a white supremacist. You know what I mean? Like that's just the truth. But it's protest. Like, is that incitement? Well, somehow I don't think so.
It appears to be.
Point of view.
Dave Rubin, great to see you as always. Hollywood celebrities and business elites are spending